Are you looking to take the next step toward investing in commercial real estate but don't know where to go? CRE Central offers a comprehensive education and coaching platform designed to help you get started. Our online courses cover a wide range of topics, from the fundamentals to advanced strategies, ensuring you have the knowledge and skills needed to thrive in this competitive industry. As a member, you'll gain access to our exclusive online community and monthly group coaching calls, providing you with valuable networking opportunities and personalized guidance from experienced professionals. Whether you're a beginner or looking to take your career to the next level, CRE Central has the resources you need. Visit www.crecentral.com to learn more. Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast. Today we are live with another Brokers Roundtable. Excited to be diving into this topic today because, at this point, we've been in the brokerage game for quite some time. These guys are going to have some very valuable insights to be able to share into what is worth spending money on to invest in yourself, invest in your education, your growth as a commercial real estate broker, and what might not be, right? And I'm kind of curious to see what everybody thinks is worth it or not. Question of the day, if you're joining us live, want to hear your thoughts on this in the live chat. Jump in. Which book, course, or mentor transformed your business as a broker? And drop in why. I want to hear. I want to know. I want to know what's going on. Chad, we're going to kick it off to you first, man. I'm sure you get asked this question all the time, as do I. What book would you recommend for commercial real estate brokers to read? But in addition to that, what trade publications, what magazines, what else are you paying attention to in that respect as a broker?
Yeah, thanks for that. I've got a ton, so I'll just try to list them off. Cut me off if I'm rambling too much. Two books I'd recommend right away. Ron Rohde, who's on YouTube as well. He's a lawyer and an investor based out of Dallas. He's written a book on investing in industrial real estate, which is really good. And then Justin Smith, who's a broker in California, he's written two books on industrial real estate. And that adds to a very thin library of existing resources on industrial real estate in general. So I've struggled to even have any recommendations in the past on specifically industrial books. Those two I can enthusiastically recommend. Three, actually, because Justin has two. And then for trade publications, ones that I always read regularly, at least once a week, if not daily, globestreet.com, globest.com, and then biznow.com as well. You have to sign up to read them, but it's free. You don't have to pay anything else. Great articles. They break it down just into industrial. And then anyone in Canada, Jesse will like this one as well, because he just had an article, or his video got pushed out there, is renx.ca, renx.ca. Another great one specifically for Canada. One book, though, circling back, that I would recommend anybody to read, and you might have to look to find it, but it's by an author called Robert Ringer, and it's called To Be or Not to Be Intimidated. And I'm just looking over to see if I have a copy of it on my bookshelf. I do. I could actually grab it and I could show this to you once Jesse answers his question.
Yeah.
It's so he was a very successful commercial real estate broker, and what he actually did is he'd fly around in a private jet to meet with clients all over the US. And you just think how crazy that would be, that you're meeting with brokers and you probably have one guy show up in his 3-year-old Mercedes, and then you have another guy fly in on his private jet. And the way he tells a story is fascinating, just to see what this one top dog commercial real estate broker was up to. It's a fascinating book, so I'll grab it and show it to you. So if anyone's interested in checking it out, but yeah, those would be some reading suggestions I'd have for anybody.
Yeah, I like that, man. I mean, it's branding, right? It's what's that one thing that you could do that kind of sets you apart from everybody else? Is it, for me, it was always wearing fancy jackets. I hate dressing up. Obviously, I'm always in t-shirts and yoga pants. Dude, if I have to dress up, I'm going to dress up, right? I've got some crazy looking jackets, and I always get compliments on them because people are like, man, that's really interesting. But it works, right? It's the same as showing up in a private jet. You get people's attention, and it's not too loud, right? You got to be careful about being too loud.
Yeah.
Chad, when's your next book coming out, man?
I'm working on one. I've been working on it for a long time, actually. Where Ron and Justin have both addressed a really specific need for the market. I really want to create almost an encyclopedia level book on industrial real estate, all the way from like the very basics to what people need to know for the whole course. Basically a 101 guide to industrial real estate. So I've been working on it for a long time. I was hoping to have it done by the fall, but I might be pushing it to the spring now.
Oh, I know that feeling. We pushed back
Yeah.
my next book launch a couple of times. It's so much damn work, man. It's so much work. Jesse, what about you, man? What about like online courses, in-person courses? I mean, what courses have been impactful in your career as a broker?
So there's a couple that for NAOP, the organizations in commercial real estate, I think Chad would help me out here. I think North American Office Industrial, NAIO, Operating Properties.
North American Industrial and Office Professionals
No, it is properties.
Association of Properties.
Yeah,
Okay.
that used to be the acronym, but they abandoned that name 5 years ago now. But they still kept NAOP because so many people knew it. I think it's just Commercial Real Estate Development Organization or something like that right now.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So when I first started in the industry, there was a lot of different courses that you could take through them. There still are today. If you work with a brokerage, hopefully you could give them the bill. CCIM is another great one if you're looking for technical skills in our industry, whether it's through investment or it's leasing, regardless of your specific vertical. I'll just kind of make a note on the book topic as well. I've recommended this, I think, a million times before for people that are investing or even in brokerage. And it's what every real estate investor needs to know about cash flow. And it's Frank Gallinelli. And it's just a great book to get your feet wet in the main metrics that we use. I think that's the title, and the subtitle is something like 36 other financial metrics, something to that effect. But you can get that on Amazon. And then just as an aside, and this, he has courses as well, so it's kind of an overlap. But Jeb Bloat with Sales Gravy podcast, his first book, I believe, was Fanatical Prospecting. Absolutely unreal book. I think regardless of what area in real estate or even in sales that you're in, because you guys know this, a lot of these books are formulaic in a good way in that you can really insert, your specific industry into a lot of the quote unquote scripts that they have. And what's, I think, more important is less about the specific industry, but the type of sale you do, whether it's a transactional sale, if it's a long contract sale. So obviously in real estate, we have long cycle sales. I mean, people are doing leases once every 5-10 years plus sometimes, and people are purchasing, they're not purchasing every day, the same individuals. So that's a great resource. And what I like about a lot of these podcast guys is you can, watch or listen to a couple of the podcasts for free, and then you can really see if you want to invest in the full book.
Yeah, hands down. I mean, even if you don't want to listen to the podcast, you want to go straight for the book. I mean, anything by Jeb Bloat, phenomenal investment. I mean, he's just nailed down the psychology of sales, the sales process. They're really good books. And as a broker, yeah, I mean, maybe there's some specialized knowledge you have to know, right? You got to learn the language of commercial real estate. But at the end of the day, it's just long cycle sales. Just like Jesse said, it's the same as any other industry, right? You just got to learn how that sales process works, how to keep your pipeline full. Adam is not here today, but I was going to ask him, what seminars or industry events are like a must attend for him. And I've actually been bad about this the past few years. I mean, honestly, since COVID. Before COVID, it was ICSC. Had to go to ICSC, right? Especially, was it Recon out in Vegas? That's usually their biggest event of the year. And that's where all of the big retailers are. Pretty much anything ULI, right? I am still good about going to Emerging Trends every year, because that's where the Urban Land Institute will put something on, bring in a bunch of professionals and kind of walk you through like, hey, here are the trends that we're noticing in the industry based on, our survey of all of our members. And their membership is pretty vast and broad and runs the gamut from, beginner commercial real estate investor to some of the biggest developers in the world are members of ULI. This is just such a fascinating group. Chad, before we move on, any industry events, seminars, anything that you recommend that are like a must attend for you?
Yeah, I just got back from one on Friday, actually. I was in LA for the SIOR conference. So they put on two every year, one in the spring, one in the fall. I've gone to many of them. I think it's the best conference that a broker can go to. You don't need to be a member of SIOR to go as well. There's a lot of non-members that are there, and it's just world class. They bring in fantastic speakers. Like the one last week, they had Peter Zihan, which some people
Oh,
might
dude,
know
he's
who
great.
he is. Yeah, so I got to. That's the second time I've heard him speak actually, and got to meet him again and got another picture with him. I'm a big fan of Peter's, even though he's crazy. Like I think he's certifiably crazy. He's very entertaining. But that's the level of speakers that they bring in. Really good speakers, and it's just the best group of people. I spent every waking hour having lunch or beers or dinner or something with somebody there. It's just a great group of people. So whether you're interested in getting that designation or not, those are ones to look at. And they rotate them through North America. The one in the spring coming up in 2025 is in Vegas, and then in fall is in Louisville. So you get to go to some places you might not otherwise go to and hear some world-class presentations and then meet awesome people. In my mind, no brainer. That's the one I'd recommend to everybody. And I live by it. I go to as many as I can.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I've never been. I'm gonna have to look up SIOR for their next year's conference. SIOR is a great organization. Dude, Peter Zihan, if y'all haven't read his book, there's a couple of them. There's The End of the World is Just Beginning, and there's The Accidental Superpower. And the accidental superpower is really interesting. It goes into why North America is the way that it is with regards to global power. But it's interesting that he wrote that back in like 2015, and he basically said in that book, Russia's going to invade Ukraine, and here's why. So I think it's kind of fascinating because he's like a global economist. So I don't know. It's interesting stuff. If nothing else, it's very, very entertaining.
It will make you think. It'll make you
Yeah.
think because even though I think he's crazy, I also think that he's brilliant as well. So he's almost a mad scientist who
Yeah,
just happens to
100%.
be in geopolitics and the economy. But yeah, they're great books. I've read both of them, and yeah, I'm a fan of his.
That's funny. I could totally see that. Jesse, what about you, man? Industry events, seminars, etc.
Yeah, so SIOR is great. I was actually fortunate to be the MC for our last year event here in Toronto, which was a lot of fun. I think
Nice.
probably one of the tougher crowds to be in front of a bunch of brokers trying to. They're like, it's gonna. They gave me so much time on like how to get everybody back to the table. I'm like, it'll be easy. I just call them. And it's like, no, it's an open bar. I'm like, so
Not really.
yeah, or there's like tickets or whatever. But SIR is great. You get a lot of different people in our industry. ICSE, especially on the retail side. What we have in Toronto, and I'm sure in a bunch of other major markets, we have kind of our national apartment conference here. So that's a big one in Toronto. Pretty much anybody kind of associated with apartments or financing of apartments comes to that event. Those are all great, and I think there's other events or things that you can go to that don't necessarily. I know the question is specific to our industry, but I think we've talked about this before. If you're in a certain area where you work with clients in a certain industry, then go to those conferences too. Like if you do a lot of mining work, go to the mining conferences. Like associate yourself with the people that are actually going to be part of your potential clientele. And we've done that in the past with startups. We've done it with different tech conferences here in Toronto. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well. It's not just about being in the your real estate bubble.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice because it's so easy. I see this happen all the time. Brokers get stuck networking with other brokers. Like that's great.
Yeah.
You should have a relationship with other brokers, but they're not going to give you business. Go to the conferences where you're going to be the only commercial real estate broker. Real quick, guys, lightning quick answers. Philip is saying, I have a random question. What CRM do you all recommend for commercial real estate? Philip, I use HubSpot. Chad.
I use Zoho, which is on the Salesforce. It's similar to Salesforce, anyways, and we just heavily customized it. My little bit longer of an answer is use whichever one you'll actually use,
Yeah.
because there's a lot out there with a lot of bells and whistles, and they can be very complex and overwhelming. And a lot of people will almost get overwhelmed by having something too complicated, and then they don't use it. So ours, the one that we use, is very simple, and we've been on it for 8 years, my team and I. So buy whichever one you're going to use.
Jesse?
That's a great point by Chad. I think it's like diets, right, or working out. You do the program that you're actually going to follow. For me, it's Pipedrive. For my company, for Avis and Young, it's HubSpot. And I'll just briefly say, I've noticed after years of doing this that there's a difference between a small team CRM and a gigantic company CRM, and they're usually not the best fit for both. So if Philip Elliott, if you're using it for yourself, I would recommend Pipedrive or HubSpot as like a small account. But then if you're using it for a much larger team, then I don't think Pipedrive would be the best fit.
Yeah, you definitely got to format them differently and think about your growth and where you're headed and what other. I mean, it's tough, but at the end of the day, like Chad said, pick the one that you're going to use. Okay, moving on to like personal development, right? As you're going through your career, being focused on continuing to make yourself better every day, obviously, is going to significantly impact the outcomes that you're going to have, right? So, Chad, when it comes to staying on task with all of the small details, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that can catch up to you in this business, right? Because as sales reps, we got to prospect, we got to market, we got to go out and do tours, we got to handle contracts. Like there's a lot of different things. What time management tools or habits have you implemented in your business that have kind of taken your game to the next level?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that I was perfect at this. I waste time and I am inefficient regularly. I think one thing that's really helped, and this is just the product of being in the industry for 20 years, is that our team has grown to the level where we have a full-time team coordinator now. So that team coordinator is excellent at taking a lot of stuff off of our desks and organizing it. But I was in the business for 18, 19 years before we hired that position. And before that, we had a junior associate who'd help with a lot of the more day-to-day tasks. But I think everybody's got to realize that it is an ongoing task. You always have to be trying to keep yourself efficient. You can't just develop a system and then rely on it, because any new thing that comes onto your desk can completely disrupt your workflow and you almost have to redo it. So I don't think it's something you can just set up and set and forget. Like, what was that cooking thing? Set it and forget it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. It'll come to me later. But I don't think you can do that in our business. I think it's an ongoing tinkering of having to always stay on top of things. And how can you incorporate new technology? How can you integrate AI? That didn't exist 2 years ago. So I think we always need to be cognizant that it's an ongoing battle of trying to do as much as you can, be as efficient and productive as possible, while also staying in tune with other tools and new developments that can help. So it's not a neat and tidy answer, other than it just legitimately takes work and a constant focus.
That's right. There's no perfect answer to it. I mean, I have learned over the years that if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist in real life. So I put
100%.
everything goes in my calendar. And, I mean, like my email right now, I've got over 1,200 emails in my inbox. I ended up, it's funny. I have an autoresponder. I know you guys have seen this. I have an autoresponder on my email that basically says I only check emails on Thursdays. And I had to do that because I can't keep up with it. Somebody got mad at me last week for not having responded to an email that they sent me 2 months ago. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put up with this. I went in and changed my autoresponder, and now it just says I'm probably not going to see your email. So sorry about it. If it's important, you'll find another way to contact. I can't deal with that stuff. Like, dude, dealing with email, not a good use of my time. Talk about time management. Jesse, that was totally off topic. But
it's a good topic as well. Yeah. Like, think if you were to try to email Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos.
It's not responding.
They're not responding. There's not a chance. So they're definitely infinitely busier than any one of us, but it's on a scale. Like, that doesn't mean that we're still not busy too. Like, people should be busy. So yeah, I think we all seem to have this unreasonable expectation that you just email someone and then they email you back within 10 minutes. I think that's actually dangerous for all of us to be a slave to your email. So yeah, I don't think what you're doing is wrong at all. It's probably in the better interest of your business and your mental health too.
Yeah, I mean, it is, man. We're doing better than we ever have. Like, and I'm as busy as I've ever been. Like, it hasn't stopped me from doing anything. It's just always, the BS you got to respond to at some point. Jesse, mentors and coaches, how do you go about finding them? How have they impacted your life? I mean, that's one thing I see new commercial real estate brokers struggling to find, right? It's like, how do I find a mentor? How do I make it worth their time to meet with me? What's your experience been in that world?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago here, and I think, it's a generic answer of adding value, but put it the opposite way. If you try to send an email out and say, you want to work with somebody and you want them to mentor you, but you don't offer anything of value, it's really, you're kind of going about it the wrong way. I think you add value first, and then you can have the right to try to be a mentee or a protege to somebody else. But I think there's a good distance in age. So, for instance, if you're in your early 20s, I think having a mentor in their 60s is not the ideal mentor for you. If you're in your early 20s, I think somebody in their late 30s and early 40s is a good fit, just from the fact that they have established themselves, but they're also in a point where they are becoming the older guard, and you're going to get more value out of it, I think. The other thing is, I don't think it necessarily has to be in your vertical. It doesn't necessarily have to be. So, for instance, it could be a real estate, but they don't necessarily have to be in office if you're in office, or industrial if you're in industrial. If you want to learn more about those things, yeah, that would help. But I think somebody that roughly is following the trajectory that you want to follow career-wise, I think that's how you can go about that. But yeah, number one, I think if it's the first step when people are like, how can I find a mentor? I think ultimately it's reaching out, sending an email, meeting with them in person. Like I just interviewed somebody the other day, 2-3 weeks ago, and she was the one who said, listen, like, I'd love to come meet in person. Just something small like that, where every other person we talk to just will accept a Teams call. The fact that she wanted to make the effort to come in person, it's a small thing, but I think it's just a unique thing. And to go out and, say to somebody, I'll come to your office if you've got 10-15 minutes. You got to put yourself out there. And I think those little things in today's day and age go a long way. And I'll just say, when you mentioned the if it's on your calendar, it doesn't exist. It always just reminds me of Anchorman when he's reading the teleprompter.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm the same way. If it's not on my calendar, it's like, and you have to be honest with yourself too. Even with family of mine, I will schedule stuff in my calendar, because my calendar in my personal life and my calendar in my work life, has become kind of one thing.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've got everything in there. We've got, dinners with friends are in there. I've got, Preds games are in there. Like, all those kinds of things are in there, because if they're not, I don't have I don't know how people do this and not have calendars, but like, how do you remember all of the things that you have to do? Like, I got to keep it somewhere. Yeah. And look, here's the thing too, adding on to what Jesse said, send an email, send a DM on Instagram, find their phone number, give them a call, leave them a voicemail. Because here, just because they don't respond to an email doesn't mean that they're not interested in talking to you, right? If you send me an email, I might love grabbing coffee with you and taking 30 minutes out of my morning to give back. I'm happy to do that occasionally, not all the time. But if you send me an email, I'm probably just never going to see it, right? So you got to think like, okay, if I was a sales rep and this is a prospect, what are all the different ways that I'm going to go try and get a hold of them? Keep that in mind. Jesse, have you ever paid for coaching? Like, have you ever hired a coach specifically to help you either grow in your business, grow in sales, whatever?
So no, the closest I've outside, like, I assume you're asking from a work kind of thing. I haven't paid. The closest I've gone to is masterminds, or like basically small groups of where you have a senior person. Like years ago when I was trying to get into understanding how syndications work, I had a small mastermind group, and it was great. It was the only negative thing I would have to say about it is it was predominantly American, so I had to kind of translate. And Chadwick can appreciate this. I had to translate a lot of the legal and regulatory component to Canadian, but it was a great experience. And I think coaches in general, if I went back in time, I probably would. It's just, you just have to be careful of, or just be cognizant about finding the people, because there's a lot of people online that claim to be coaches and XYZ, as you guys know, and just making sure you're connecting with the right person.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've had two coaches, one that was a brokerage coach and one that was a sales specific coach. Both were total misses for me. Like I
Yeah.
invested a lot of money into those. And looking back, the only thing that I can think of as to like, yeah, did I learn some tips and tricks? Sure. But they were both kind of remote, like call based, and it was all one-on-one. And I look back on like the events that have had the biggest impact on my career, they were all masterminds, right?
Yeah.
Like it was getting into a room with other people because, yeah, the speaker might say something that's interesting, but it's the conversation that I'm having with one of the guys on the side and learning how he's running his business that like totally sets me off on a completely different path that I find interesting. What about you, Chad? I'm curious.
Yeah, I had a coach when I was newer into the business, and it wasn't a guy who was in the industry. He was more of a business executive sales kind of coach, and he was really good. I don't know even what his professional background was. We never got into it, but he was just what he instilled and some of the habits and some of the suggestions that he had were really good. I think that ties in pretty neatly with the mentorship one is if you have a mentor that you're not paying, what's the difference between that and a coach that you are paying? And there's definitely going to be some overlap in there. And I don't know if one's better than the other. I think it's going to be largely dependent on how you gel with that person. So if you found somebody that was a business coach and you paid them and they were invested in you personally and they were committed to seeing you succeed and they had a plan and they actually had a vested interest in your success, that's worth a lot. Like I don't even know if you could put a value on that number, because the return that you could get from having somebody invested in your career is invaluable in my mind. And I think the same could be with a mentor. If you find someone that's just legitimately interested in seeing you succeed as a person and they're following up with you and you're not having to badger them and they're just genuinely interested, I think that's a ticket to success. It's not going to be instant, but I think that is like a ticket. You can jump on that train and you're going to find some success at the end of it. I love the mastermind one. I've been a part of numerous ones over the years as well. If you can find a group of local people, it's twofold. You're not only going to learn from them, and I'm a big believer that you learn a lot through other people's mistakes as well as their successes. You're going to learn from their experience, but you're also building your network at the same time. So if you can find a good mastermind group, especially in our business in commercial real estate, if you find a group of other people, they're probably entrepreneurial. I can't imagine that there's a mastermind group for government mid-level employees. Let's put it that way. I can't imagine some mid-level employees with their MBAs sitting around brainstorming how they can be more efficient in government.
Can you imagine how miserable that would be? Oh my God.
They'd probably be trying to figure out how they can do less work. That's how they would mastermind.
That's a great sales pitch for Mastermind. Man. It's funny though. It's also a little. I'm sure you guys experienced this too. It's a little scary in the beginning because when you don't know that much about masterminds or different groups, you see some of these prices like $2,000, $5,000, $20,000, and you're like, dude, this is insane. Like, what is the value? It's until you go and do a few of these. If that's what got you your first capital raise, then it was obviously worth it. But it's, I think to your point, Tyler, is there's a reason I think a lot of people like researching things by looking at Reddit. It's because it's a mini mastermind. You get 17 different questions and angles of looking at a problem rather than just reading what Google told you this thing is about. So I think that happens a lot, to your point, where it's great having a knowledgeable speaker, but having 20 other people that are interested, that are coming at a subject from a different perspective than you are, you learn a lot in that process.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it. I mean, I love Reddit, right? Specifically because of that, because I'll jump into the comment section and I get to hear all sorts of different perspectives that help me actually formulate a more educated opinion on it. Because, I mean, somebody that I probably completely disagree with is jumping in and saying their perspective. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I would not have thought of it from that way, but that is a different reality, right? That's pretty interesting. Yeah, dude, I remember the first mastermind I joined, it was like $10,000. And I just knew, like, I could see all of the people that were in it. I knew I wanted to be in that room. But, man, I about had a heart attack. I couldn't afford it, right? I put it on a payment plan and did the whole thing. And it set me on a path. Like, because I did that, I learned how to syndicate deals. And the next year after I joined that mastermind, I bought 4 buildings. So it was like, yeah, the infinite returns. And now I look back, I'm like, okay, I'm in one mastermind I'm paying $25,000 a year for. I've got a coach that I pay $25,000 a year for. It's like, man, ease into it. You'll work your way up. It's worth it at some point. But don't start off at $50,000. Awesome, guys. This was a great discussion. I think diving into investing in yourself as a commercial real estate broker will be very impactful for a lot of people. And I think it's important to know. Guys, go out there, read all the books, go to CCIM, go to SIOR, go to NAIOP, go to ULI, join whatever local industry associations will help you rub elbows with the type of businesses, the types of landlords that you want to be in business with, and find a mastermind. Join a mastermind, join some coaching. Maybe your brokerage already has that for you. Appreciate you guys. We'll see y'all in the next one. Are you looking to take the next step toward investing in commercial real estate but don't know where to go? CRE Central offers a comprehensive education and coaching platform designed to help you get started. Our online courses cover a wide range of topics, from the fundamentals to advanced strategies, ensuring you have the knowledge and skills needed to thrive in this competitive industry. As a member, you'll gain access to our exclusive online community and monthly group coaching calls, providing you with valuable networking opportunities and personalized guidance from experienced professionals. Whether you're a beginner or looking to take your career to the next level, CRE Central has the resources you need. Visit www.crecentral.com to learn more.